Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really taking on something pretty radical. We're looking at building an empire, not just, small improvements, but monumental achievement.
That's right. And we're basing this on a specific, quite demanding philosophy. Think consciousness as the cause of everything. We're diving deep into the ideas, largely from Neville Goddard, focusing on this principle, acting as if you are destined to build something.
Right, acting as if. And that context is key because, let's be honest, it pushes against how we normally think things work. The big question we kept coming back to is, well, what actually changed for you day to day if you really believe deep down that you're going to build an empire?
Yeah, an empire of whatever kind, business, art, ideas.
Doesn't matter the field.
Exactly. And our mission here is to unpack why the sources insist this kind of building starts inside. In consciousness, not with the usual stuff like seed money or those things, according to this view, they come later. They're effect.
Okay, so let's jump right into that. The invisible foundation. Because usually empires mean big, visible things, buildings, companies, armies.
Right, but we have to look inward. The core idea here is that every single empire was first built, fully formed, in what the source calls the secret workshop of imagination.
The secret workshop, I like that. It sounds intimate, personal, like before anything physical happened, there was just this image, this conviction held in someone's mind.
That's the real bedrock, the invisible architecture. Imagination comes first, then reality follows. Like lightning before thunder.
Lightning before thunder. So the inner flash, the idea, the knowing, that's the cause.
And the thunder, the big noisy result out in the world, that's just the inevitable effect it has to follow.
That flips things around, doesn't it? So external success or failure, for that matter, is just the echo of whatever lightning we allowed inside.
Which brings it right down to you, listening now. If your imagination is, all over the place, fuzzy,
then your life reflects that chaos.
Precise. If the inner blueprint is small, the results stay. An empire needs a detailed plan inscribed first on conscience. You've got to dare to think big, invisibly first, because the unseen, it runs the show.
Okay, if the unseen runs the show, let's talk about the main tool, imagination. A lot of people just dismiss it, right? Like it's just daydreaming kid stuff.
Yeah, that's a common misconception. But these sources are adamant. Imagination isn't just fancy, it's the most practical tool you possess. Seriously practical.
How so? How does it become practical?
Because holding an imagined state with persistence and real feeling makes it become fact. The universe or reality, whatever you want to call it, responds to the feeling of the wish, the feeling of it being done.
Okay, that takes it out of just like positive thinking and into something more fundamental. I mean, look around you. The chair you're sitting in, the phone you might be listening on.
All of it. It was all just imagination once. Someone held that idea firmly enough, insisted on it.
So the real is, the unseen governs the scene. If things aren't working out externally.
Don't wrestle with the outside circumstance. That's like fighting shadow. Go back to the blueprint. Change the internal image. Your outer world is just projecting that image.
The sources use this builder analogy, which I found really helpful. A good old doesn't just, show up with a load of bricks and hope for the best.
Not at all. They start with plan, detailed plan, measuring, calculating, figuring out proportions.
They know the structure before they lay the first brick.
And you are that architect. Your imagination is where you draw up the plan for your life, your empire. Without clear plans, your actions are just random, scattered.
This also messes with our idea of what's real versus unreal.
Yeah.
We tend to think only what we can touch and see is real.
But this philosophy flips it. It says the unreal is not the imagined. The unreal is the unimagined.
Wow. So if you haven't imagined it, that's what's unreal.
Exactly. Your current situation, it's just old imagination, basically. Stuff you imagined consciously or maybe just absorbed unconsciously that finally hardened into fact.
So the goal isn't just to wish for something different.
No, it's to live in the desired vision internally, right now. Feel it as real, more real than what your senses are telling you, until the outside world catches up.
And when you get that inner conviction, that feeling of it being absolutely settled,
the world starts to mold itself around it. Like clay, the sources say. Resources, people, opportunity. They aren't things you chase. They're things you attract by holding that finished picture.
So imagination isn't passive. It's the active force that pulls everything together, the silent architect.
That's it. It's the command that summons all the materials needed for the job.
Okay, so we have the blueprint imagination. Now, what about the person holding the blueprint, the builder? This feels like a shift from what you see to who you are. We're talking identity now.
Yes, and this is where the real transformation happens. It's a core principle. Lasting change doesn't start with changing your circumstances. It starts with changing your identity, who you believe you are.
Why is that so crucial?
Because you literally cannot create or, more importantly, sustain a reality that doesn't match your self-image. It just won't stick.
So identity is like the thermostat, the silent governor you mentioned. Yeah. It sets the limits. It dictates choices, filters what you notice, determines what feels possible for you.
Absolutely. If you don't fundamentally see yourself, feel yourself, as someone capable of building and leading an empire, all the effort in the world will just feel like it won't consolidate.
The sources use that classic example, right? The pauper who suddenly inherits a fortune.
Yeah. If that person still feels like a pauper inside, still carries that consciousness of lack, of not enough, what happens?
They lose it, blow through the money somehow, end up back where they started.
Because the inner identity, the governor, couldn't handle that level of abundance. It wasn't congruent.
Okay, I get the principle, but let's push on this practically. Someone's listening, maybe they've got zero cash, loads of debt, no connections. If they just start assuming they're a billionaire, isn't that just a denial? Delusion? How do you bridge that huge gap?
That's the million-dollar question, and it's about where the action comes from. The person who assumes the identity of greatness, they still have to act, they still have to work.
Right, it's not magic.
No, but their actions flow from a place of certainty, not desperation. They react differently to setback. They operate from the assumption that the resources must show up to match their inner state rather than frantically chasing them out of fear.
So it's the difference between trying to get something you feel you lack
versus being the person who naturally has it. The one who tries sees the goal way out there, separate. The one who identifies with success, they live as success isn't something to get, it is their nature, and the world is just catching up to that fact.
Okay, I see. Identity comes first because life is like a mirror.
Always. It reflects back to you not what you want, but what you deeply, truly assume yourself.
Let's make that concrete. Like in a meeting, if you go in assuming you'll be overlooked.
You'll find evidence for it everywhere, won't you? You'll notice the slight glance away, the interruption.
But if you walk in assuming you're the key person, the leader, the one with value,
opportunities seem to gravitate toward. People respond differently. The world can't help but echo the tune, your posture change, your tone. Everything sends signals based on that core identity.
So the actionable step for anyone listening is really internal. It's asking, who am I being right now in conscious? Am I walking around like someone building kingdoms or someone just trying to survive?
And that inner state is paramount. The person who feels like a ruler, even if they're currently poor, is actually closer to wealth than the rich person inadequate.
That internal identity, the engine, assume the crown inside first, even if you're just making coffee in a tiny kitchen.
That's the starting point. Assume the crown.
Okay, so we've got the vision, the blueprint from imagination. We've got the identity, assuming the crown. But here's where, the rubber meets the road, the daily grind. Lots of people have big dreams.
But they fall down on the execution, especially the small stuff.
Right, and the sources say this is fatal. That the real secret isn't the big flashy moves. It's the seemingly insignificant actions performed daily with intention.
Think about building something massive, like a cathedral or a pyramid. It doesn't rest on one giant magic stone.
No, it's countless small stones, each one perfectly placed.
Each one carrying its share. And if those small stones aren't laid faithfully, with discipline,
the whole structure is unstable. It won't.
Exactly. What you do consistently, quietly when nobody's looking, that speaks way louder to your ultimate death, some rare heroic burst of effort. Consistency in the small things declares your commitment.
Okay, let's connect this. If my goal is, say, building a global tech empire, why does how I wash my dishes or keep my desk tidy even matter? Isn't that just a distraction from the real strategic work?
It matters because of it's not about the dish. How you handle the small reflects how you'll handle the large. If you're sloppy and chaotic in your immediate environment, in your thoughts,
you're broadcasting chaos. You're broadcasting chaos. An emperor, someone building something lasting, demands order. Discipline starts in their immediate vicinity, in their own mind first, then outwards.
So these small acts, they become almost sacred because they're signals of alignment with the bigger vision, like how you get out of bed.
Are you dragged out, complaining, or do you rise with purpose, like someone who has important work to do?
Or how you guard your thoughts against doubt, the order you keep around you, even how you speak.
Precisely. Washing a dish with full attention, writing a clear, concise note, speaking deliberately. These can become sacred acts if you perform them with the awareness that this contributes to the empire. This is part of the structure.
So the size of the act isn't the point. It's the identity you bring to it. A small email handled with clarity and authority from that ruler identity
has more creative power than a massive project launched from a place of fear or desperation. It's recognizing that every single choice, even the hidden ones, is laying another stone in that invisible foundation.
This reminds me of the gardener analogy, the source. It's about patience, right? Yeah, the gardener doesn't scream at the seeds to go faster. They don't force the harvest.
They just do the small repetitive things, weeding, watering, tending.
And those consistent small acts carry this quiet inevitability about them. They build momentum.
The danger is wanting the appearance of the palace without doing the slow, steady work, of laying the foundation stones.
Exact. Craving the result without embracing the process. True greatness, true empires, they grow layer by layer, often quietly at first. Those unseen bricks, the inner discipline, the order, the persistence when things are tough, they're what give the structure its real strength.
Right, so the internal work is happening. We've got the blueprint, the identity, the daily discipline, but then, bam, you look outside and the world is screaming the exact opposite message.
This is the critical juncture, the moment of truth for many. How do you handle that gap between the inner vision and the outer facts?
Because your senses, what you see, hear, touch, they're constantly feeding you information. Your bank balance, the lack of response, the problems piling up.
And the core teaching here is that sensory report. It's testimony, yes, but it is not the final authority. It's not the ultimate truth.
Why not? It feels pretty real when the bills are due.
Because what you're currently seeing and hearing is essentially old news, the residue, the echo of your past beliefs and assumptions finally showing up in the physical world.
Like looking at starlight that's traveled for years.
Exactly like that. It confirms where things were based on your past inner state, but it doesn't necessarily reflect where you are now internally. Truly shifted. Living only by that sensory evidence chains.
So to build something new, something grand, you have to deliberately give more weight to faith than to the so-called facts.
Yes, but let's define faith carefully here. It's not wishful thinking. It's an active faculty. It's the ability to see the invisible reality constructed in imagination and hold it as true despite contradiction.
Okay, let's contrast. Evidence says you're struggling.
Faith says it is done. The struggle was part of the old story. I am now in the state of success.
Evidence points to lack. Empty bank account.
Faith clothes you in the feeling of abundance now, knowing the physical manifestation must follow that.
Evidence shows huge roadblocks.
Faith sees the clear path through or around them, focused only on the destination already accomplished.
But again, let's bring in that friction. Zero in the bank. Creditors calling. That feels immediate threat. How does someone practically hold on to faith then? Where's the strength come?
The strength comes from deeply understanding that the external pressure is temporary. It's part of the lagging indicator. It's the old reality playing out. Yeah. The person operating from the empire builder identity doesn't panic about how to get the money.
They operate differently.
Yes, they operate from the inner certainty that they are the source or that the solution is already theirs because they've claimed it in consciousness. Their focus shifts from getting to allowing the manifestation of what's already established with it. It changes their response entirely.
So faith becomes the operational compass, especially in storm, believing the blueprint more than the construction site.
And realizing this crucial point about timing. Evidence is always late. It's a lagging indicator. It's the harvest showing up from seeds planted earlier in consciousness.
So the wealth, the influence, the finished project, they're just the inevitable result of seeds already sown inside. Like the gardener knowing the seed is growing underground, even when the surface looks bare.
That's the gardener's knowing, that assurance. The person who trusts only the evidence gives up at the first sign of trouble. See, I knew it wouldn't work.
Because the facts confirm their underlying doubt.
But the one living by faith understands. Delay isn't denial. It's just the physics of manifestation, the unseen world rearranging itself to match the new dominant assumption. Faith, in this sense, is just patience clothed in absolute certainty. You walk like the ruler now, even if the throne isn't visible yet.
And that faith, that certainty, it needs fuel. It needs persistence, holding that vision steady day in, day out. Because like we said, lots of people have the initial flash of inspiration.
But few persist through the silence, through the apparent lack of movement. Only those who keep tending that inner fire, keep holding that image, actually see it become solid reality.
So persistence is that unwavering focus, holding the inner picture until the outside world just has to conform.
Exactly. Vision is the seed. Persistence is watering it daily with your attention, your feeling. If you plant the seed and then ignore it, or worse, dig it up every day to see if it's growing,
it dies.
It dies. And the world seems designed to test this persistence. It often withholds the results, sometimes for quite a while, just to see if you'll blink, to see if you'll give up the...
And those who waver, they essentially trade their birthright, their empire, for the temporary comfort of agreeing with the current facts.
They do. Persistence means you refuse to let the delay dictate your inner reality. Hold the image of the completed empire, feel the reality of it, even when you're surrounded by seeming chaos or lack. That unwavering inner picture acts like a magnet,
pulling everything needed into alignment.
Yeah, which brings us to that great analogy of the sculptor.
Right. The sculptor doesn't just randomly chip at a block of marble hoping something nice comes out.
No, they see the finished statue inside the block before they even start. Their work isn't about creating the form, it's about removing everything that isn't the form.
Chipping away the excess.
They persist because they can already see the end result. They know it's in there. And that's how we have to view our current circumstances sometimes, as the excess marble that needs to be chipped away to reveal the masterpiece we've already...
And the biggest enemy here isn't really failure or opposition, is it?
No, the biggest danger is forgetting, simply losing sight of the vision, getting so caught up in the noise of the senses, the daily problems, that the inner image fades. The fire goes out.
So persistence is really a form of devotion to that inner reality, refusing to trade the invisible crown you've assumed for the visible chains of your current situation.
Every time you consciously return your focus to the end result, to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you strengthen it until that inner vision becomes more solid, more real than anything your physical senses.
And this all leads to what the sources call the greatest secret, living in the end.
This is the absolute key, the master technique. You don't wait for the empire to be built to feel like the emperor. You have to embody that state, live from that now.
Not just thinking about it, but thinking from it.
Exactly. Thinking from the state of the wish fulfilled. This isn't about waiting for evidence. It's about being the state so powerfully that it compels the evidence to appear. You occupy the feeling of fulfillment before it arrives externally.
Okay, but how? How do you feel grateful for wealth when the bank account is empty? How do you walk with authority when you feel powerless?
You focus on the mood, the feeling of the end state. What would it feel like if your empire was fully realized? Relief, joy, quiet confidence, power, security. Find that specific.
And saturate yourself in that feeling.
Yes. Like an actor stepping fully into character before they even walk on stage. They don't wait for applause to become the king. They are the king, and the applause follows. The inventor feels the thrill of discovery before the machine works perfect. You embody the feeling of the end.
So it's the ultimate act of identification. You're not just picturing the throne. You are sitting on it right now in consciousness. You walk through your finished empire in your mind.
You let that feeling of fulfillment of it being done color every thought, every interaction, every small act throughout your day.
And the result?
The result, according to these sources, is inevitable. The world, the circumstances, the people, they begin to rearrange themselves to match that dominant inner state. Without force, without manipulation, the world simply cannot resist the command of a consciousness that has firmly planted itself in the reality of the wish fulfilled. You've claimed the crown internally, and the external kingdom must follow. Hashtag tag outro.
Wow, that is quite a journey into the internal mechanics of building something truly significant. So just to recap the sequence for everyone listening, it starts with imagination, getting that clear blueprint.
Then moving firmly into identity, assuming the consciousness of the ruler, the builder, the one who is successful.
Which is then grounded daily through the discipline of small acts, laying those stones consistently.
And navigating the inevitable conflict with current reality, using faith, trusting the unseen vision over the seen evidence.
And finally, cementing it all with persistence, which is really the art of living in the end, feeling it real right now.
And the value here, the shortcut this understanding off, is realizing that the foundation is always the outer stuff, the money, people, the break. They're just servants responding to that clear, unwavering inner...
That inner identity. That's your primary, most powerful resource, and it's available right now.
Absolutely. Which leads to a final thought we wanted to leave you with, something to really mull over.
Okay.
The sources strongly suggest the world mirrors your inner state. It treats you how you treat yourself, essentially. Opens doors when you carry confidence. So if every choice, every thought, even the hidden ones, is building that invisible structure of your destiny, here's the question. What single, maybe hidden action or shift in awareness could you make right now, thought you correct, feeling you a small act performed with authority that would signal to yourself and therefore to the universe that you have already claimed your crown?
What action now proves you're already wearing it?
Something for you to explore as you move forward from this dive.